The last thing Ayla expected that night was trouble. She was too tired for it, too used to slipping through her routines quietly, almost invisibly, like someone the world rarely noticed. Her life wasn't dramatic. It wasn't exciting. It was work, home, sleep, repeat. She didn't mind it. Stability was its own kind of comfort. But the night it all changed didn't give her any warning. Ayla had just stepped out of the bus and started the short walk to her apartment, hugging her cardigan closer around her. The late air held the heaviness of a day that had overstayed its welcome. She rolled her shoulders, trying to ease the tension from the double shift she'd just finished. It felt good to finally be heading home. Yet the quiet street didn't feel as familiar as it normally did. Maybe it was how empty it looked. Or how the wind rattled the sign of the corner store like impatient fingers tapping. Ayla tried to shake it off. Maybe she was just exhausted. She was always exhausted lately. Still, something in her body tightened the closer she got to her building. She walked faster. Her keys jingled as she reached her front door, but the sound didn't calm her like it usually did. Instead, it made her flinch. Ayla frowned at herself. "Come on," she muttered. "You're fine." She wasn't. The moment she pushed the door open, the hairs on the back of her neck rose. The apartment was dark, but it was more than that. Too still, too silent, as if the air itself were waiting for her. She stepped inside anyway. Her first step made the floorboard creak. Her second step never landed. A hand slammed over her mouth from behind, cutting off her breath, and strong arms locked around her before she could scream. Ayla's body reacted instantly, kicking, twisting, struggling, but whoever held her didn't budge. Panic roared through her chest. She clawed at the hand muzzling her, but another figure stepped out of the shadows in front of her, tall and hooded. "Don't hurt her," the one in front said. His voice was oddly calm for someone invading her home. "They want her alive." Alive? Her mind froze on that word. Why would anyone want her? Before she could make sense of anything, cloth pressed to her face. A sharp, chemical smell filled her nose. She jerked, fought harder, her heartbeat exploding with fear, but her body was already losing strength. The last thing she heard before everything went black was a voice whispering into her fading consciousness. "The Alpha will finally bow." Ayla woke to cold stone beneath her cheek. Her eyes shot open, her breath catching in her throat as she scrambled upright. The room around her was dim, lit only by a few lanterns mounted on stone walls. It wasn't an apartment. It wasn't even a normal building. It looked like a fortress or an old mansion, the kind that didn't exist anywhere near her small neighborhood. Her wrists were free. Her ankles too. She wasn't tied down. That somehow scared her more. She stood carefully, her legs weak and trembling. The floor was solid stone. The air smelled different. Earthy, raw, almost wild. Something inside her chest tightened, like her body recognized a place her mind couldn't name. She wasn't alone. Someone was standing near the door. Ayla froze. The figure stepped forward, no hood this time. A man, tall, sharply built, with dark hair and a face carved in cold, controlled lines. He looked like someone who never smiled, someone whose presence filled a room in a way that made breathing harder. But it was his eyes that made Ayla's stomach drop. Silver. Unnervingly sharp. Almost inhuman. He studied her like she was a problem he hadn't decided how to solve. "Good. You're awake." His voice was deep, steady. Not gentle. Not cruel. Just unnervingly certain. "Sit." Ayla didn't move. "Who are you?" His gaze sharpened. "Sit," he repeated, slower this time. Fear tried to push her down, but she forced her feet to stay rooted. "Where am I?" "I was taken. Those men, they drugged me." "I didn't do anything." "You have the wrong person." He didn't look surprised. He didn't even look confused. If anything, he looked like he'd expected her to say exactly that. "You're in my territory," he said simply. "That's the only part that matters." "Your territory?" she echoed. "What does that even mean? Who are you?" He paused, and for a moment something flickered behind his eyes, something sharp enough to cut. "I'm Kael," he said. "Alpha of the Draven Pack." Her mind stuttered. Alpha? None of it made sense. Like, a gang? His expression didn't change. "Not the kind you're thinking of." Ayla swallowed hard. Her heart was racing so loudly she could barely hear anything else. "Why am I here?" Kael stepped closer. Not threateningly, not even with speed. But the air around him shifted. He carried something that made the room feel smaller, thicker, as if gravity itself obeyed him. You were taken from rogue territory, he said. They planned to use you. For what? She demanded, voice cracking. His eyes held hers. Unblinking. Too intense. To get to me. A chill sliced through her spine. That's insane. I'm nobody. I go to work, I pay rent, I don't even get parking tickets. There's no reason anyone. There is, Kael said firmly. You just don't know it. He looked at her as if waiting for her to understand something impossible. When she didn't, he sighed, a low, controlled sound of annoyance or resignation she couldn't tell. You're not ordinary, Ayla. The way he said her name made her flinch. She hadn't told him. You carry a dormant bloodline. His jaw tightened slightly. A dangerous one. Ayla shook her head. No, that's wrong. I don't have anything. I don't even know my real parents. I've never. That's exactly why the rogues wanted you, Kael cut in. A dormant bloodline is easier to manipulate. Yours can weaken an alpha. Or bond with one. Ayla's heart stopped. Bond? Kill? None of this could be real. She backed away a step. You're talking like some kind of truth, he said simply. Ayla pressed a hand to her forehead, feeling overwhelmed, outnumbered, out of place in a way she'd never felt before. Everything about him radiated certainty. And everything about her life felt suddenly stolen. So what happens now? She whispered. Are you letting me go? Kael looked at her without a hint of softness. No. Her breath hitched. Why? She whispered. He held her gaze without blinking. Because if the rogues get you again, he said quietly, they will use you to destroy me. Ayla's mouth went dry. And if you stay here? She asked. He didn't look away. Then I decide whether you become my protection. His voice lowered. Or my death. Ayla felt her knees weaken. In one night everything was gone. Her job, her home, her safety, her sense of normal. And she didn't know whether she'd been saved. Or stolen by the very man she should fear the most. Ayla didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. The room Kael ordered her to stay in was spacious and clean, but none of that mattered. Every time she tried to lie down, her heartbeat thudded so hard it kept her awake. Every sound outside the door made her sit up. She didn't trust the place, the situation, or the man who seemed to command everything with a word. She even tried the window once, hoping she could slip out, but the drop below was too far and the surrounding forest stretched endlessly, darker than ink. Even if she made it down, she'd never make it out alive. It was isolating enough to make her chest tighten. By morning her body felt numb. A soft knock came at the door. Ayla tensed instantly. Before she could answer, the door opened and a woman stepped in. She was dressed in dark fitted clothes, hair tied back sharply, posture straight and rigid. Her expression didn't show anger, but it also didn't show warmth. You need to come with me, she said. Ayla blinked. Who are you? Lyra, the woman replied. Beta of this pack. There was again. Ayla still wasn't ready to wrap her mind around the word. She followed Lyra reluctantly, keeping a careful distance. The hallway felt endless, lined with thick wooden doors and stone walls. Everything about it felt old and controlled, like the place had rules she hadn't been allowed to learn yet. They walked until they reached a large dining room where Kael sat at the head of the long table. A few others stood nearby, clearly waiting on him. He dismissed them with one gesture as soon as he saw Ayla enter. Sit, Kael said, nodding toward an empty chair. Ayla hesitated. Lyra's eyes flicked toward her with impatience, but Ayla kept her gaze on Kael. She didn't want to be difficult, but she also wasn't going to pretend she trusted any of this. Kael raised an eyebrow. If I wanted you restrained, you would have woken up that way. Sit. She slowly took the seat across from him. Kael ate quietly, while Ayla stared at the untouched plate set in front of her. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but pride and fear kept her hands still. She didn't want to seem helpless. She didn't want Kael to think she'd accept being here just because he fed her. Eat, he said without looking up. Ayla swallowed. I'm not hungry. Kael lifted his eyes toward her. You haven't eaten in almost 20 hours. I'm fine. You're not, he said calmly. You're human. Eat. The way he said human made her pause. Are you saying you're not? She asked quietly. Kael didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying her with a focus that left no room for lies. You want the truth? He tapped a finger against the table once. You're safer knowing it. Ayla's breath caught. Safe from what? From me, he replied, not raising his voice. From them. He gestured vaguely toward the forest outside the window. And from yourself. Her pulse quickened at the last part. What do you mean from myself? He folded his arms across his chest. Your bloodline reacts to alphas. Draws them. Weakens them. Strengthens them. It depends on the person. His gaze darkened. That's why you're here. You felt the pull before, didn't you? Last night. Ayla remembered the strange sensation when his eyes locked with hers, the sudden heat in her chest. She'd assumed it was fear. Maybe it was more. Against her will, she whispered, What if I don't want anything to do with it? That doesn't matter, Kael said. If it awakens, you won't get a choice. Ayla's fingers curled under the table. What if I refuse to stay? Kael met her stare, unblinking. Then the rogues will take you again. And they won't keep you alive long. Ayla's voice tightened. You're acting like I'm some object being traded. He gave a small, humorless sound. Not an object. A weapon. The word sent a chill through her. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair back a few inches. Lyra immediately stepped forward, but Kael lifted a hand, stopping her. Ayla didn't hide her anger. I'm not staying in this place like some prisoner. Kael didn't flinch. You're not a prisoner. You're controlling everything I do, she shot back. I'm trying to prevent you from dying, he corrected. You think this is about control? You don't understand your bloodline. The moment it awakens, your life changes. And mine changes with it. You keep saying that, she said. You keep talking like you know me, like you know what I am. I don't even know what you are. Kael leaned forward. Then listen. Ayla's breath froze. Your line comes from the silencers, he said. Wolves who could influence alphas. Some strengthened them. Some destroyed them. The rogues want you because if you bond to me willingly or not, it could topple this pack. Bond. The word felt too big, too dangerous. Ayla slowly sat back down because her legs were too unsteady to keep her upright. You're saying I can control you? Kael's jaw tightened. Or kill me. Her heartbeat thudded painfully. I don't want to hurt anyone. I know, Kael said softly, and the gentleness caught her off guard. That's why you're here. Lyra stepped closer, but Kael didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on Ayla. You don't trust me, he said. Good. You shouldn't. But trust that the rogues won't stop. They won't care if you want to be used. They'll force it. Ayla rubbed her arms slowly, trying to calm her shaking. So what now? She finally asked. You stay here, Kael said. For protection. Ayla frowned. And what if your pack doesn't want me here? Kael didn't hesitate. They do what I say. His certainty was so blunt it made Ayla silent for a moment. Why do you look at me like you're waiting for something? She asked quietly. Kael didn't blink. Because your bloodline is dormant. For now. But it won't stay that way. Something happened last night. When I got close to you. Ayla remembered that strange hum under her skin, that odd warmth that didn't feel like fear. What did happen? She whispered. Kael's gaze flicked briefly toward Lyra, then back to her. Something I need to test before it becomes a threat. Ayla tensed. Test how? Before Kael could answer, a sudden shout echoed from outside. Footsteps rushed across the hallway. Lyra immediately stepped between Ayla and the door, tense and alert. A guard burst in without knocking. Alpha, rogues breached the training yard. Kael stood instantly, the chair scraping back. He looked at Ayla once, sharply. Stay inside. Don't open this door for anyone. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his voice. But the tension in his expression was enough to make her stomach flip. Lyra moved to follow him, but Kael stopped her, his eyes narrowing. No. Stay with her. Lyra stiffened, clearly unhappy, but obeyed. The door shut behind Kael, leaving Ayla alone with a woman who clearly didn't want her there. Ayla stood in silence, listening to the distant commotion. Her heart hammered as she whispered to herself, What is happening to my life? Lyra didn't look at her but spoke quietly. You should hope the Alpha comes back alive, she said. Because if he doesn't, you won't survive a single hour here. Ayla felt the weight of those words settle deep inside her. She wasn't ready for this world. But this world wasn't going to wait for her to be ready. She stayed awake for hours after Kael disappeared through the door. Every sound outside made her heart kick a little harder. Lyra paced the room like a restless shadow, checking the window once, then the hallway, then lowering herself into a chair with visible impatience. Ayla didn't speak at first. She didn't know if she should. But time stretched and worry grew thicker in the air. Eventually Ayla couldn't hold it in anymore. "How often does this happen?" she asked quietly. Lyra didn't look at her. "Often enough that you shouldn't panic every time." "That's not an answer." Lyra sighed and turned, meeting Ayla's eyes without softening. "You're not used to conflict. I understand that. But Kael is capable. More than capable." Ayla clasped her hands together, trying to keep them steady. "You don't exactly sound reassured." "I'm not here to reassure you," Lyra replied. "I'm here because he told me to guard you." The words had a sting Ayla hadn't expected, not because Lyra sounded annoyed, but because Kael had chosen to keep her protected. He could have sent anyone. He could have ignored her. But he hadn't. It shouldn't have mattered. It did. Minutes blurred into what felt like hours until footsteps pounded down the hall. Lyra straightened instantly, muscles coiling. Ayla held her breath as shadows moved beneath the door. Then Kael walked in. Ayla didn't think. Instinct made her take a step toward him before she caught herself. He wasn't seriously hurt. No wounds, no limping, but his clothes were marked with dirt and torn fabric. His jaw was clenched, expression sharp, but his eyes scanned the room immediately, and stopped on her. Relief. Raw, unguarded, etched across his face for a fraction of a second. She didn't know what to say. Her throat tightened with something she didn't want to name. "They're gone," Kael said, voice low, controlled. "Two got inside the grounds but were stopped." Lyra nodded once. "Do you want updates from the patrol?" "Later," Kael dismissed. "Leave us." Ayla blinked. "Wait, she can go?" Kael stepped further into the room. "Yes." Lyra hesitated, not out of mistrust for Ayla but habit. Then she bowed her head slightly to Kael and slipped out the door. The silence that settled afterward was heavy and personal. Kael's gaze returned to Ayla. "Are you hurt?" The question struck her unexpectedly. It wasn't harsh or commanding or cold. It carried a rough softness she hadn't heard from him before. "No," she answered. "I'm fine." His shoulders eased. Again, too visible, too honest for someone like him. Ayla's eyes lowered to his torn sleeve. "What about you?" He glanced at it as if only just remembering. "It's nothing." "You say that a lot," she muttered. His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make her chest warm strangely. Ayla crossed her arms to ground herself. "Why were they here?" "Looking for you," Kael said simply. Her stomach dropped. "Already? But I've only been here." "They don't need time," Kael cut in gently. "They need opportunity. And you're too valuable to them." Ayla rubbed her arms, unsettled. "I still don't understand why." "Why me?" Kael reached up, brushing dirt from his knuckles as he spoke. "Your bloodline. And the connection that's starting to form." Her breath hitched. "Between us." His eyes lifted to hers, steady and unflinching. "Yes." Heat rushed into her cheeks before she could stop it. I don't know what that means." "You're not supposed to," Kael replied. "Not yet." There was something in his voice, not authority, not dominance. Something quieter. Something restrained. He took a step closer. Ayla didn't move back. Kael stopped when there were only a few feet between them. Close enough for her to notice the faint scent of forest on his clothes, the warmth radiating from him, the way his eyes weren't nearly as cold as she had once thought. "You felt it," Kael said. Not a question. A certainty. Ayla swallowed. "That's the warmth." "Yes." She looked down briefly, then back up at him. "What is it?" Kael held her gaze. "Your bloodline calls to mine." Silencers and alphas were compatible in ways that should never have been explored. Compatible how? His jaw flexed once. Emotionally. Physically. Powerfully. Her face warmed even more at the middle word. Kael noticed, she could tell he did, but he didn't take advantage of it, didn't step closer or press the moment. He simply watched her, studying her reaction with an unreadable calm. Ayla shook her head lightly. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," he said. Then why am I not free to leave? Kael's eyes softened barely. Because the world outside this place doesn't care what you want. It cares what it can take from you. Ayla's chest tightened. She didn't want to rely on him. She didn't want to believe she needed him. But when he stood this close, talking to her with that impossible steadiness, she felt a small sliver of something she shouldn't have felt at all. Trust. He shifted his weight, and Ayla realized he was watching her far more closely than before. Why did you look worried? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kael blinked once. When you came in. You looked at me like you thought something happened. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let out a slow breath and lowered his guard just enough for her to see something vulnerable beneath it. Because I did think something happened, he said. Because the rogues got too close. Because Lyra could have slipped. Because anything could have gone wrong. Ayla's heart pounded against her ribs. That's your job, she said softly. To protect your pack. This wasn't about the pack, Kael admitted. Her breath caught. He stepped closer, not touching her but close enough for her to feel the intensity of his presence. Ayla, he said quietly, whatever is forming between us, I'm not immune to it. The room felt suddenly warmer. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel. Fear, attraction, confusion, but all three tangled together until she couldn't separate them. Kael reached toward her, slow enough for her to pull back if she wanted. He didn't. He brushed a strand of her hair behind her ear. His fingers barely grazed her skin, yet the touch rippled through her like something she had no defense against. Then he dropped his hand as if catching himself. I shouldn't have done that, he said. Ayla's voice came out quieter than she intended. Why? Because you're not here by choice, he said. And I'm not supposed to want something that complicates everything. But you do, she whispered. Kael didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence between them said everything. Before she could respond, another knock came at the door. Kael instantly straightened, slipping back into alpha mode, though his eyes lingered on hers a moment longer. Lyra poked her head in. We found signs the rogues had help inside. Kael's jaw tensed. Inside? Yes, Lyra said. Someone here is betraying you. Kael turned to Ayla again. This time the look he gave her wasn't only protective. Carried fear not for himself. For her. Ayla, he said quietly, don't go anywhere without me. Not with anyone. Not for any reason. She nodded even though dread curled in her stomach. The danger wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the walls. And the only person who made her feel safe was the one man she had been stolen away by. The alpha who swore he'd never love. But the way he had looked at her tonight. She wasn't sure he could keep that vow much longer.